James Maddison Jr. entered the world on the 16th of March, 1751, at Belle Grove Plantation in Port Conway, Virginia. He was the eldest of 12 children born to James Maddison Sr. and Nellie Conway Maddison, a prominent family of tobacco planters in Orange County. His father was a respected landowner and a leading figure in local affairs, which provided young James with a stable and intellectually stimulating environment from his earliest days. Growing up at the family estate, later known as Montpelier, he was surrounded by books and conversation, kindling a lifelong passion for learning and civic duty that would come to define his existence and shape the future of a new nation still in its infancy. As a young boy, Maddison was often frail and suffered from periods of ill health. This delicate constitution, however, did not hinder his intellectual development. Instead of spending his days in strenuous physical activity, he devoted himself to his studies with remarkable intensity. He received his initial education at home from private tutors who instructed him in a range of subjects including Latin, Greek, mathematics, and philosophy. This classical education laid a formidable groundwork for his later intellectual pursuits, instilling in him a deep appreciation for the history of governance and political thought, from the ancient republics of Greece and Rome to the contemporary thinkers of the Enlightenment. His thirst for knowledge soon outgrew the confines of a home-based education. At the age of 18, he enrolled at the College of New Jersey, which would later become the renowned Princeton University. This decision was unusual for a Virginian of his standing, as most of his peers attended the College of William and Mary. At Princeton, under the tutelage of the influential Reverend John Witherspoon, Maddison excelled, completing the standard 4-year course of study in just 2 years. He remained for an additional year to study Hebrew and political philosophy, demonstrating an unyielding dedication to understanding the fundamental principles that govern human societies and their political structures. After completing his formal education, Maddison returned to his family's estate at Montpelier, uncertain of his future path. He briefly considered a career in law or the clergy, but found his true calling in the turbulent world of revolutionary politics. The growing tensions between the American colonies and Great Britain captured his attention, and he became an ardent supporter of the Patriot cause. He began his public service as a member of the Orange County Committee of Safety in 1774, marking the start of a long and distinguished career dedicated to the ideals of liberty and self-governance, a journey that would see him rise to the highest echelons of American leadership. James Maddison's early political career quickly established him as a formidable intellect and a dedicated public servant. He served as a delegate to the Virginia Convention in 1776, where he contributed to the drafting of the state's constitution and its influential Declaration of Rights. His most significant early contribution was his successful argument for amending the clause on religious tolerance to one that firmly established religious freedom as a natural right. This subtle but profound change revealed his deep commitment to individual liberties. His service continued in the Continental Congress, where he grappled with the immense challenges of funding the Revolutionary War and governing under the weak Articles of Confederation, an experience that profoundly shaped his views on the need for a stronger national government. The inadequacies of the Articles of Confederation became increasingly apparent in the years following the Revolution, leading to calls for a convention to revise them. Maddison was a principal advocate for this gathering and prepared for it with extraordinary diligence. He undertook an intensive study of historical confederacies and republics, dissecting their successes and failures to draw lessons for the American experiment. This exhaustive research culminated in his Virginia Plan, a comprehensive blueprint for a new federal government. This plan proposed a strong national government with 3 distinct branches: legislative, executive, and judicial, and became the essential framework upon which the United States Constitution was ultimately built, earning him the well-deserved title Father of the Constitution. During the Constitutional Convention in Philadelphia in 1787, Maddison was an indispensable figure. Despite his quiet demeanor and soft-speaking voice, his intellectual contributions were immense. He spoke more than 200 times, his arguments consistently grounded in logic, historical precedent, and a clear vision for a stable and enduring republic. Furthermore, he meticulously recorded the convention's proceedings, providing the most complete and detailed account of the debates that transpired. These notes have become an invaluable historical resource, offering unparalleled insight into the intentions and compromises of the men who framed the nation's government, securing Madison's place not only as an architect, but also as the foremost chronicler of its creation. Following the convention, the struggle for ratification began. Madison collaborated with Alexander Hamilton and John Jay to write a series of essays known as the Federalist Papers. Writing under the shared pseudonym Publius, Madison authored 29 of the 85 essays, masterfully defending the new Constitution and explaining its complex system of checks and balances. These essays were instrumental in persuading the public and state legislatures, particularly in the crucial state of New York, to support ratification. His brilliant arguments articulated a vision of a government powerful enough to be effective, yet constrained enough to protect the liberties of its citizens, a foundational concept that continues to underpin American political discourse. James Madison's ascent to the presidency in 1809 came at a time of escalating international tension. Following 2 terms as Thomas Jefferson's trusted Secretary of State, he inherited a nation struggling to maintain its neutrality amidst the Napoleonic Wars raging in Europe. Both Great Britain and France were violating American maritime rights, with the British practice of impressment, the forced seizure of American sailors into the Royal Navy, being a particularly egregious offense. Madison's early presidential years were consumed by diplomatic efforts to resolve these conflicts through economic pressure, such as the Non-Intercourse Act, but these measures proved largely ineffective in compelling the European powers to respect American sovereignty on the high seas. The persistent British aggressions and pressure from a vocal group of war hawks in Congress eventually pushed the nation towards conflict. On the 1st of June, 1812, Madison delivered a message to Congress outlining the nation's grievances against Great Britain. He detailed the long history of impressment, the violation of American waters, and the incitement of Native American hostilities on the western frontier. After careful deliberation, Congress declared war, marking the first time the United States had officially declared war on another nation. The War of 1812, sometimes called the Second War of American Independence, would become the defining event of Madison's presidency and a severe test for the young republic. The war itself was a fraught and challenging affair for the United States. The nation was ill-prepared for a major conflict, with a small army and navy facing the might of the British Empire. Early campaigns, particularly the attempted invasions of Canada, were met with failure and defeat. The most humiliating moment came in August 1814, when British forces captured Washington, D.C. and set fire to the White House, the Capitol, and other public buildings. President Madison and his wife Dolly were forced to flee the Capitol. Dolly Madison famously secured the preservation of Gilbert Stuart's iconic portrait of George Washington before escaping the executive mansion, an act of courage that became a symbol of American resilience. Despite these significant setbacks, the war also had its moments of American triumph, which fostered a new sense of national identity and unity. The naval victories of the USS Constitution, the successful defense of Fort McHenry in Baltimore, which inspired Francis Scott Key to write the Star-Spangled Banner, and Andrew Jackson's decisive victory at the Battle of New Orleans in January 1815, galvanized the American spirit. Although the Treaty of Ghent, signed in December 1814, officially ended the war by restoring pre-war boundaries, the conflict solidified American independence and ushered in an era of good feelings, leaving Madison's presidency on a note of hard-won national pride and strengthened sovereignty. After leaving the presidency in 1817, James Madison retired from the forefront of national politics and returned to his beloved Montpelier estate in Virginia. He was succeeded by his friend and political ally James Monroe, ensuring a continuation of their shared Republican vision. Back at home, Madison dedicated himself to managing his large tobacco plantation, a complex and challenging enterprise that, like many of his contemporaries, relied upon the labor of enslaved people. This deep contradiction, a champion of liberty who was also a slaveholder, remains a difficult and essential aspect of his life story, reflecting the profound moral paradox at the heart of the nation's founding generation. In his retirement, Madison did not remain idle or isolated. He remained an active and influential voice in public affairs, corresponding extensively with political leaders, scholars, and friends on the pressing issues of the day. He carefully organized his voluminous papers, including his invaluable notes from the Constitutional Convention, preparing them for posthumous publication to ensure future generations would understand the principles upon which the nation was founded. He also became deeply involved in the establishment of the University of Virginia, alongside his friend Thomas Jefferson, succeeding Jefferson as the university's second rector and continuing their shared commitment to the power of education in a self-governing society. One of Madison's most significant post-presidency roles was as a staunch defender of the Union against the rising tide of sectionalism and the doctrine of nullification. When South Carolina threatened to nullify federal tariffs in the 1830s, Madison penned forceful public letters arguing that no single state had the right to unilaterally defy federal law. He warned that such actions would lead to anarchy and the dissolution of the very union he had worked so tirelessly to create. His arguments provided crucial intellectual support for President Andrew Jackson's pro-union stance and reaffirmed his lifelong belief in a strong, unified nation governed by a supreme constitutional authority. James Maddison passed away on the 28th of June, 1836 at the age of 85, the last of the major founding fathers to die. His legacy is monumental and complex. As the father of the Constitution and a principal author of the Bill of Rights, he laid the theoretical and practical groundwork for American democracy. His presidency saw the nation through a perilous war that ultimately affirmed its independence and fostered a new sense of national identity. Though his life was marked by the contradictions of his era, his profound intellectual contributions and unwavering dedication to the principles of a balanced constitutional republic secure his position as one of the most consequential figures in American history.